Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 8th, 2024 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Hearings before this commission are quasi-judicial in nature. This is a divine review process to determine whether a proposed project is congruous with the special character of the historic district or landmark in which it is located. Decisions of the commission are based on the record of these proceedings, the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, and the Secretary of Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. Evidence submitted to the Commission for review will become part of the record. Appeal of a Commission decision must be submitted to the Wilmington Board of Adjustment within 30 days of the date of the Commission action. Further appeal must be submitted to Superior Court. Evidence pertaining to an agenda item must be presented during the evidentiary portion of that item. Individuals who wish to address the Commission will be sworn in as witnesses to present material and substantial evidence. The Chair will recognize each witness who wishes to address the Commission during the evidentiary portion. In order to ensure that witness evidence is properly recorded, each individual should come to the podium and clearly state name and address before addressing the Commission. As a brief reminder, members of the Commission are appointed by and serve at the pleasure of the City Council. Our charge is with respect to the protection and preservation of properties located within the city's designated historic districts. The Commission is held to the requirements of the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, as well as applicable North Carolina state law. We are to determine whether exterior changes to a building are congruous with the special character of the city's historic districts. It is important that the Commission deliberate the merits of each request in a manner that provides a record of the basis for our decisions. Please remember that our deliberation should be centered on how a project meets the Wilmington Design Standards and whether the changes are congruous. Commissioners, if you have received or been made aware of any information outside this evidentiary hearing related to any agenda item before the Commission, please recuse yourself from that agenda item. Before the meeting begins, please ensure that all cell phones are in silent mode or turned off. At this point, I will introduce the members of City staff who are here to help us tonight. Melissa Huffman, the Assistant City Attorney. Brian Chambers, Assistant Planning Director. Jessica Baldwin, Historic Preservation Planner. Megan Basic, Associate Planner. And Amy Bradshaw, Planning Coordinator. I'm Kathleen Egan, the Commission Chair. And before I have the other commissioners introduce themselves, I wanted to note that Ron Wilson, who is a commissioner, resigned due to business scheduling conflicts out of town. And Joan Keston, who is going to fill in for him through the end of his term, and we will now swear Joan in.
Ms. Keston, if I could have you please stand up and raise your right hand. I, Joan Keston, have been duly appointed a member of the Wilmington Historic Preservation Commission, do solemnly and sincerely swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of my knowledge and ability. I will obey the laws of the ordinances of the City of Wilmington and faithfully discharge the duties of the office to which I have been appointed. Thank you. And at this time, if I could have all members, staff, members of the public who wish, and applicants who wish to speak tonight, to please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, I did also want to thank Ron for his years of help and hard work with this commission. And I will now have the remaining commissioners introduce themselves.
Ross Tomaselli,
Stephen Sulky.
Ashley Wilson.
Christopher Yermel,
Allison Watts.
Then we will now that everybody's sworn in, we will move to the minutes and the approval of the January minutes and ask if there are any suggested edits or correction to the draft minutes from any of the commissioners. Then if I could have a motion to approve
I
the
motion to
minutes.
accept.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Are approved. We will now move on to the evidentiary hearing part of the meeting, and we will begin with old business. And if the staff could provide us with the report for the first item on the agenda, 109 South 7th.
South 7th Street. The subject property is located on the east side of South 7th Street between Dock and Orange Streets and is a contributing resource to the Historic District residential. All facades and site are subject to design review within this district. The Penny House, built circa 1888, is a two-story, three-bay wide, side passage Italianate-style dwelling. The low-pitched hip roof has an ornate bracketed cornice, a wide frieze band and with arched vents, 2/2 sash windows, and features decorative peaked hoods and molded trim around the windows. The front facade is adorned with a two-story, full-width front porch supported by posts with ornamental brackets on the upper story and hand-sawn corbels. Both stories' balustrades feature turned balusters, and the main entry is a double-leaf door with a segmental arch and coordinating transom. Along the southern side, a three-sided bay projects from the upper story and is supported by ornate brackets. The applicant proposes to replace the existing standing seam metal roof with Gulf Coast 5V 12-inch crimp panels. No gutters, downspouts, or new vents are proposed. The applicant provided additional information and photographic evidence per the commissioner's request after previous meetings, and these you can be seen here. And the staff would like to enter tonight's presentation and report into its proceedings.
Are there any questions for staff? Thank you.
Great.
We will now give the applicant an opportunity to provide additional evidence or address any questions we may have.
Good evening. I am Mark Dubinsky. I'm the owner of the home in question at 109 South 7th Street, Wilmington, North Carolina. I am requesting again permission to replace my current metal roof with similar materials. The estimated age of the roof is very difficult to determine. By best estimates, at least 50 years of age, and has undergone multiple repairs per previous owner conversations as well as coating. Since our last meeting with you all, I was able to submit some additional photographs to the best of my ability from my contractor. As again stated at last meeting, we have dealt with internal leaks through bedrooms and ceiling stainings that are continuing to worsen as we go through this process. In addition, through my contractor, when we proposed the possibility of coating our roof in order to, quote, save it, the contractor utilizes a secondary agent called American Weather Star, and an email received to me from Mr. Joseph Markle, the regional manager, in response to my roofer, quote, "Thanks for sharing the pictures from the residential historic roof in Wilmington. I have some concerns with coating this roof. The bond of a new roof is only as good as to what it is being bonded to. If any of the existing coating comes loose, so will the new coating on top of it. With various coats on the roof already, it can be especially difficult to troubleshoot where the issues are, as some may be hidden. The identifiable ones can surely be addressed, but may not find all of them, thus resulting in continued leaks or more in the near future. There would also be no warranty available for the coating on a residential roof with multiple coats on it already. That being said, we can come up with a plan to coat it to the best of our ability. Again, there is no warranty. It is just hard to know how long it would last, and a new roof is likely the better option. I think we would all agree that products in building cannot last forever. Metal, roofing, concrete, masonry, siding, there's a life expectancy. With that being said, I am, like I said earlier, I'm planning to replace it with metal on metal, and I ask for your reconsideration on this proposal.
What was the representative from the manufacturer, what kind of coating was that they were proposing, that he was speaking to? What was the material?
The product itself, sir, I don't know.
So don't know if it was hydrostop or a silicone or something like that?
I do not.
Weather stop.
May I ask a question? Would it matter? With the
I'm just-
statement already
look,
stated, to apply a coating anywhere, there's no warranty on that.
Your roof is in amazing condition. It does have some leaks. It does have some leaks. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've coated things. I've had roofs coated that are 20 years old and roofs that are much worse condition than this that are still holding up.
If you get the job, would you guarantee that job?
My roofers have guaranteed the job in the past, yes.
Did you submit that email to staff by any chance?
I would have to ask Jessica if she has that. I have a copy here.
If you're willing to share it with them, that would help. We could put that in the
Sure.
file.
And the proposal is for a 5V roof, meaning it has exposed fasteners?
That was the original proposal, but you had questioned me last time. If you recall, would I be willing to do similar to similar without exposed fasteners? I would, if you pay the extra money from the town. I'm being facetious. However, again, I state, the roof is not visible from the street. Pictures are obvious. That's an extra $8,000 expense.
And the built-in gutters, what were those? Remind me what the built-in gutters, what was going to become of those?
Well, I think right now, there's no plan to replace them, but once the roof comes off, I think that at their termination, we'll have to make that decision on what needs to be repaired. They're not, the gutters around the roof are not exposed. There's
The leaks you're experiencing, are they in the central part of the house, or are they along an outside wall where the gutters are?
I'm sorry, your question?
You said you had leaks in the bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Are they on the outside wall?
No, sir, they're in
Like somewhere in the central part of the house?
center part of the,
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'm sorry, one more. So we saw new photographs. A lot of them were taken from ground elevation, looking up. But are there photographs that, I mean, was there rust or deterioration that needed to be repaired?
is there visible rust on the roof? You would have to view the available pictures from the drone. I didn't take the pictures myself.
Thank you. We will now open the evidentiary portion to members of the public for comment. We will close the evidentiary portion and open the commissioner deliberation.
I'd like to hear from other, I mean, I should have made it, someone on the commission here should have made it pretty clear that it seemed like there would be an uphill battle to allow for this roof to be replaced with 5-year standing seam. I don't think the built-in gutters can be can be saved. We're dealing with things that are in the design standards set forward by the National Park Service, and we try to abide by, and I mean, my sentiment on this is known. This roof is in really good condition. It can be coated, prepped properly, washed and abraded, cleaned thoroughly, and recoated with a few different materials. Silicone would probably be most appropriate. And you're getting another 20 or 30 years plus of life out of this, maybe longer. But I'd love to hear from other commissioners on the note.
I mean, basically, my roof is 4 years different and looks about the same, and anything, again, that's leaked, I've fixed. I have no intention of replacing my roof. I mean, you think about it, like mine, these roofs have survived every hurricane that has hit this town since, well, this one 1888 and mine 1896, something like that.
Mr. Sulky,
I'm
if you
sorry.
could speak into the mic a little bit
Okay,
better.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, these roofs have lasted for a very long time. I realize things eventually wear out, but with the coating, I think this can be kept. And to be seen from the street or not, it's an element of the historic district in this house. I mean, if I saw a lot of rust on this and things are falling apart and crumbling, that's one thing. But to look at this roof, I just can't see replacing it. I'm sorry.
I don't see any written evidentiary evidence of the roof deteriorating in the documents that I see. Am I missing something?
Was there an evaluation done of the roof that just kind of described the structure of the roof? And we see the photographs, but there was no narrative or anything provided by a specialist on the condition.
No further discussion?
I think that the border kind of around it where it's flat, you can see in some of the photos, there's like a border where the roof is really flat. I think that makes it really hard to see. Yeah, those show it. It does make it really hard to see from the street, and I walk by this house all the time. So I understand kind of the concern. You can see it from, if you're like across Dock Street. I did catch one view. And I think I understand the standards say replace like materials with like materials if they're available. And since a true standing seam is available, it seems like if we're going to replace it, that's the material that we would be willing to approve. But it seems like maybe even replacing it is out of the question for some commissioners.
Ross, any thoughts?
Kind of to reiterate what Ali said, in terms of, you know, an alternative to replace it, standing seam would be the obvious choice. I feel like it's a bit of a middle ground here. And there is a concern that if you can't get a warranty on a roof and this is a reoccurring thing, that's an issue.
Okay, then I think our best bet is to make a motion.
Can I ask one more question, please?
Sure.
Address the board. So I just wanted to ask ahead of time if I'm voted against and would pursue coding. My only issue with that issue is it my responsibility then to find a contractor, more than one, perhaps two or three, who would offer me an opinion on coding? And what happens if there is no warranty from either of those? Would the board accept 3 opinions? Will they stop at 10? So what would be my alternative? How are we going to answer this question? If it is turfed down and say, no, I'm not allowed to do this, that you would want me to pursue coding, then do I get recommendations? How do I find recommendations? There are numerous roofing contractors in this area. So that's the first thing. Secondly, getting a roofer to look at my home is also a delay. They don't come this week. They'll see me in 2 months. That gets kicked down into the spring. Then again, I present with you evidence I already have one contractor who says, I cannot guarantee recoating this roof. Okay, let's replace it. All right, so we kick it down. I come back in a month or two with 3 others, and let's say I don't get any guarantees. That's my responsibility to put that money out? So I would like a response for that. Why you think about what decision you make for me, please.
Okay, the Historic Wilmington Foundation does have a preservation resources network, and I
Yes,
think
and there's at least 20 roofers on that list.
20 roofers.
Perhaps, my best estimate, last time I looked. You can ask Mr. Gilbert.
Again, I've done a dozen plus of these roofs and coated them with silicone, and they've been fine for a very long time.
I would prefer that the roof be coated, but if it turns out that it's just not feasible, then according to the standards, if the applicant replaced the roof with a standing seam roof, it would meet the standards. So what do you think about making a motion that while the first option we would like would be to recoat, but if that's not feasible, the applicant could then not have to come back to us and use a standing seam roof to replace it. At least that would give the applicant the opportunity to look into the coating and try to save it, but if that's not possible, then standing seam will meet the standards.
Yeah, I think he's gone to one roofer already. There are other roofers that do this, but I don't think he's found anyone after talking to one roofer that's recommending coating the roof. But I guarantee there are other roofers in town that do this and do this every day and can do this roof, and it could save a ton of money, and it saves the built-in gutter, saves the integrity of the roof in that part of the home. But I don't want this relationship between the commission and folks like this to be adversarial. Like I would love for us to meet somewhere. I don't know what options there are, but again, if I were to walk up on this roof and look around with any number of about 3 different roofers, there's not a chance that we would recommend tearing this roof off and replacing it. But if there's some other way to go about it, I don't know what that would be. You know, and I'm just one. I'm one commissioner up here with one thought on this.
I just don't think that we've got enough evidentiary, as Chris thinks, that we need more opinions on the roof.
Yeah, someone that actually can look at that roof, say, yes, it has a couple of coats on it, and I can do it, and I can warranty it. The roofers exist. They're out there. I don't know if I can state who they are from up here at the dais, but they're around, and they can be. They're not hiding.
Okay.
All right, then it sounds like the consensus is not to approve it at this time.
Commissioners, if y'all could please speak into your microphones.
Sorry, it sounds like
Thank
the
you.
consensus is not to approve it at this time.
Yeah. I think,
I'll make a motion. I move to deny the installation of the 5E roof. Details as shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement containing the application, supplemental materials, and statements made in this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including findings of fact. The following conditions, I'm not reading that. The proposed request does not comply with Wilmington design standards for historic districts and landmarks and is not compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building in the historic district in which it is located, and is not congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the historic district, residential as a whole. Applicable design standards 1.6 and 3.1.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll now move to the second order of old business, which is 710 Grace Street.
The subject property is located on the south side of Gray Street between McRae and North 7th Streets. It is a non-contributing resource to the historic district, and revisions to all facades of the building and site are subject to design review in this district. It's the historic district residential, I forgot that word, sorry. The Cromwell House, built circa 1904, is an L-shaped, 4-bay wide front gable cottage with a pyramidal roof. Archive descriptions note that it once had a central entry door with a transom, a front porch, and 2/2 sash windows. Today, the front porch has been infilled, and the front facade features a central entry. The applicant proposes to replace decorative shutters with identical shutters. The applicant proposes to remove cladding from all facades and install new wood siding on the front facade and portion of the western facade. The new wood siding would match with dimension and design of the existing. The applicant also proposes to install new hardy board siding on the rear and side facades of the main dwelling. The new hardy board siding will match the dimensions of the existing. Lastly, the applicant proposes to remove shingles from the front facade gable and install new cedar wood staggered butt shingles on the front facade gable end. The new shingles will not be painted or stained. The applicant also proposes to replace the front entry door and frame with great doors, knotty alder, unfinished, pre-hung single wood front door with a divided light and lower panel. Finally, the applicant proposes to repaint the house and front door with the colors shown here. According to the National Parks Service, installing vapor barriers like Tyvek would be considered an insensitive treatment of historic resources, and an installation would require the removal of historic finishes that can be damaged in the process. Instead, they recommend that only if the walls are deteriorated or damaged to the point it requires a complete replacement would that be appropriate to install a vapor barrier. Staff notes that the HPC meeting dated December 9th, 2021, the contractor and former owner of the home noted the current shingles on the gable and wood siding were revealed when vinyl siding was removed from the house. Staff also notes that the existing shutters were approved by a bypass application in 2022. The house is considered non-contributing to the district due to the lack of original integrity, though at the time of designation it was covered in vinyl siding. Staff would like to enter tonight's report in its entirety to the proceedings.
Are there any questions from the commission for staff?
Jessica, for some reason, I'm pulling this item up on my iPad, and this agenda item keeps like collapsing or disappearing, but just,
I think it has
and I know,
huge
I
file.
know enough about having previewed this. But anyways, is there a proposal on this application for a new covering over the front door?
I
roof?
believe that she has brought in information tonight to speak to that.
Okay.
She did not provide it until today, so we don't have it in the report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We will now give the applicant the opportunity to provide additional information or answer questions. Amy, do we need to swear someone in?
They weren't sworn in, so.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Hi, Karina Schultz, 710 Grace Street.
Ma'am, if you could bring the microphone to you also when you speak that way, because it's being recorded.
Rudy Dombrowski, ATD Building.
Thank you.
First, I just want to say that there's absolutely no hardy board going on the house. We're talking all wood. That was just from the previous proposal. And, you know, as, you know, this is going crazy. This is my house here, a very lovely house. Although, you know, we do need to replace the windows for reasons that have been discussed previously and have been already approved. I'm back here because last time we were at an impasse as to, why does all the wood need to be removed, and that there was no precedent. And in the previous meeting, Stephen, you had mentioned that you did see from 620 Walnut around the corner where they did in fact take off every single stitch of wood on that home and another house as well. So I brought Rudy here to go into further detail as to the many reasons why the wood has to come off, and how he'll go about doing it with milling and keeping as much wood as possible.
Yeah, our proposal is basically with the reinstallation of the windows. The current windows are well below the size of the current rough opening. So just replacement windows using existing frames would be difficult because there's no water seal between the the existing frames and the house and the wood studs. So once we remove the wood shims, which is about 2 or 3 inches between the window and the wood frame, we're going to have damaged siding and not a solid surface to take the windows to. That's our biggest concern. Secondly, I think that there was vinyl siding on this before, and that with the removal of it, there was damage to the existing siding, which has created air penetrations. I know vapor barriers are possibly frowned upon, but using some type of caulking just kind of seems a little unrealistic for all the damage that's happened. So what I'm recommending is, to take the siding off, preserve as much as we can, especially and reuse the existing siding, especially on the front and any visible areas. Then on the back, have it milled, whether it be cedar or pine, to match the profile, and continue around any areas that are we can't preserve siding and reuse. So we would remove the siding, sheathe, and then place a vapor barrier so we have a solid attachment for the new windows to attach to, so we can guarantee the seal and the building envelope.
Are you proposing, a new construction window then?
Yeah, unfortunately, just due to the, do you have the picture of the? When they installed the previous windows, the one I sent you?
Yeah, I've got them.
Okay. Yeah, see that when it was about 2 to 3 inches in both directions, smaller than the rough opening. So if we were to install a new window, we'd have to take out those shims. And when you do a replacement window, you use the existing frame, and you're kind of depending on the weatherproofing of the frame to the to the studs. That's not present here. And with those shims, we can't guarantee what their attachment is to the frames. So we wouldn't be able to guarantee the installation and achieve the DP value for the window.
Oh my gosh. So can you back up 2 photographs, please? So the shims, just so I can get myself oriented, on the photograph to the left, is that the shims that are at every lap in the siding? I can't. Or maybe you haven't seen this.
No,
like
I've seen
in
it,
person. Okay.
and it's like I said, it's this is our exploratory surgery. We didn't want to tear everything off. So what the previous contractor did, there does appear to be some type of shim behind the existing siding, which looks like maybe they did that to bring it out to be more flush with the trim around the window. I'm not sure, but they did make some type of alteration to it. After they removed that vinyl siding, I think that probably, was keeping the water out for years and years. And then when they took it off, I think there was, more damage than they anticipated. I'm not sure what they did underneath it, but it's like you said, it looks like something was done, to the siding. From what I understand, some was already removed and replaced.
Yeah, there was, and actually, We could switch PowerPoints, but if you look at the two pictures side by side of the home from before my owner, or, sold it to me, you could see how much larger the windows were.
That's what I was
There's a
gonna
noticeable difference.
ask, is probably at least 3 inches wider and,
Yeah.
Well, when we asked that the wood windows be replaced
No,
before.
there was vinyl in between, actually, so if you look at the picture.
Yeah, but they did not put the right size wooden windows. They found the
Correct.
cheapest, fastest, which is causing all of the
Yes.
mold problems, all of the
Yes.
problems that they put in the wrong size wood windows and let you go with that. And that's awful, and I'm sorry. That's a real estate deal gone bad. But, and they put this in there, and so now, Rudy, you gotta fix,
Yeah,
it causes it messes up the heating and air and the mold and all of this.
And one of the advantages of doing this, Rudy, is a lot of the remediation can be done on the outside.
right. Like you're saying, there's been a lot of air infiltration. I think Karina has reports of mold, and this will allow us to observe the wall cavities from the exterior and possibly treat it. I know that's not historical relevance.
it's not, the Tyvek isn't the issue. The Tyvek is the issue on an older home and the collateral damage it's done to remove the siding, remove all the trim features, put Tyvek over something, I guess, you're sheathing it or not sheathing it, but, all new construction needs a water-resistant barrier, whether it's felt or Tyvek
Yes, sir.
or whatever. But it's not, the Tyvek isn't the issue, it's just how to get that on there. How to deal with it, how to put it, all the damage is being done to take it off. There's a lot of good siding on the house, and even the cedar that's being proposed to put back on is not gonna, honestly, it's not gonna last as long as the siding that's already on the house as it is.
Yeah.
Now, those bottom pieces, I mentioned this a couple of months ago in that last meeting, yes, you 100% have rot to repair. That has got to get done yesterday, but.
Again, the real issue, though, is securing my home, so I don't have mold.
But do you think that with fixing the window situation first?
That
would-
has to be done first.
First,
That
and
has
then
to.
we see what happens after that.
No.
I would prefer, like I said, to the 100% sure way, which is, of course, always the way I'd like to go is to provide a surface, to install the new windows to. So that would be, the sheathing and the new vapor barrier, then, so we can have continue the envelope throughout. And like I said, once we replace the rot, and then we're gonna have to cut back. I'd like to cut back if we do the new window installation. It's like, it's not like a replacement. We'd have to have enough room for the nailing fin and then caulk around the nailing fin and properly tape it off. We're really, I like to think that we're careful, but, it's how much we're going to have to replace is, going to be in question. We have done projects before on Princess Street for, John Musley, I think he used to be on this board, and we're able to preserve as much as we can. If it is in good shape, I don't see any reason for it not to go right back up, especially in the areas that are, visible from the street. The trim appears to be in pretty good condition, although some of it's new, some of it's, not. So, like I said, it's to create a proper, something to seal to is what we're looking for, so it would have to be chicken and egg situation.
And is there fiberglass insulation throughout the house? Like there were some
Yes, sir.
photographs?
Yeah.
Fiberglass,
Bad insulation, yes.
bats. So it's not just where the windows were in those photographs, but the entire house has fiberglass insulation without
Well,
any,
we don't know what's in the walls.
No, I'm pretty confident that from what we could see in the areas we took off, we could see, pink fiberglass insulation, which is probably, soaking up as much
Yes.
water as it can.
Right.
Right.
And so this was brought up a couple months ago too, like the mold issue you're talking about. I mean, a huge candidate for that could be an oversized HVAC system. Like if the house should have had 2.5 tons and it got 3.5 tons.
After this is done, the HVAC, whole entire thing.
Ma'am, if you could speak into the microphone,
Right,
please.
sorry. The HVAC system will be completely replaced. All of the, what do you call it, the tube things, the whole system,
Right.
everything.
And from my understanding, it may be, I don't think you've got a report on whether or not it's oversized and short
It
cycling.
is, yeah.
It's short cycling, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
It's short cycling,
It's
it's too
short cycling
large.
currently.
It's too large for the house.
Well, I mean, that's the mold issue then. I mean, that's the poor interior indoor air quality is.
Well, 100%, but the bulging walls from the water that was coming in is also a
Okay.
big factor.
She's got, water damage, that's, it's parallel, I mean, it's adjacent to the windows, about 4 or 5 feet off, so it appears to be coming through the siding. There's lots of damage, of course, underneath the window, but do you have your picture of that wainscoting?
Let me say, backwards, this way. I don't.
Well, she has wainscoting on the, I guess it would be the west side of the house, and all the wainscoting is buckling, and it looks like it's been underwater.
Yeah, underneath that window, you can see it
But
pretty.
it also extends to the front of the house. Because, in the window, it's going to be a 45-degree angle at the most. And then to the right of that window, that was also where it was buckling, correct? There was no window there present?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question about the siding. I understand what you're saying about having to seal an area sort of like around those windows. Can you help me understand why in sections of the house where there's no window, why all that siding has to come off as well?
I think like we were saying, that I think when they removed that vinyl siding, they didn't do it as carefully as they possibly could, and I think there was quite a bit of damage, and it just seems that she has water penetration in areas that are not close to the window. Okay. So tracking those down, I think she's done the infrared thermals, and they're picking up spots that are just no rhyme or reason. So it'd be finding a needle in a haystack.
You couldn't almost, I hate to say it, but you almost could not have a worse installation as it is. And you're dealing right now with someone that's a craftsperson, I'm sure that I know is capable of dealing with this issue with replacing a window properly and getting the right size window and installing that new wood window properly. And you can make some modifications with framing and have a little bit of sheathing around the windows for tape and air sealing around the windows themselves. But I don't see that this requires, for a handful of reasons, from the historic standards as well as other standards. I just don't feel like it requires a full siding replacement on this house. I mean, you've got to replace that air conditioning system. You have to get properly sized and installed windows, which you're on your way to doing. I'm curious, is there a proposal with this for a little roof over the front door too?
Yep, there is. So there's the door that
Right.
I'm proposing, and this is the awning. So nothing, something that'll just nicely cover the front. The stairs will remain the same. We're not changing the brick stairs that have been there previously. In-kind wood, and, well, those will be probably not in-kind. They'll have to be a little bit thicker. But the roof will be in kind with the roof that we have today there, and, yeah, elegant, simple. I can show you other views.
So there's, in the middle picture, and you might be able to answer this, in the middle picture there, right in the center of the house, is that a cricket we're looking at coming from the front face of the house, coming down to manage that water that wants to fall down the plane of that gable toward the sidewall? Is that would that be a cricket coming down?
Is that, are you talking about, how can you, the hip that's coming down, dropping on the door?
Which are you talking about?
Yeah, right to the left, to the left, to the left.
This? Are you talking about?
Yeah,
this?
right there. That triangle.
valley.
Is that a hip? I'm sorry.
I think it's a valley that you have the overframe onto the main,
Right.
and then
So,
the valley dumps there.
so when that water comes down, where the cedar shake is, and it comes down onto the new roof, what keeps the water from hitting the sidewall? I assume there's a cricket there, right?
I don't think she has a cricket drawn there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It would need some type of cricket.
Okay. I mean, that could be a cricket there that I'm looking at, but okay. All right, I'm just curious about that. So that's a part of this proposal too. It's
Yes.
the window, the siding, and this feature right here.
And just also to the shakes and to, they're the same
Right, shutters.
shutters. I just, they've been taken on and off about 5 times now, and they're falling apart. So same shutters, just going to paint them white to go with the new color scheme.
Staff would ask that we not vote on the awning piece that she's brought today. We have, as staff, has not reviewed it, and this is the first time we've seen it. I'm not comfortable with having something approved that we haven't even had a chance to properly review and let you guys know how it relates to standards. I think the other items are for you guys, but if for me personally, that would make me feel more comfortable to have a chance to understand that and understand all the parts before you guys can approve that portion.
If we were to agree with that design in theory, is that something you would do at a bypass level you're suggesting, or it would need to come
I guess you could set
back?
it up that way. That is your call, but I would just prefer to have the opportunity to look at it and make sure that I'm understanding what's going on before that. I'm not sure that just those images there are going to provide us with enough information for that. So if you wanted to set it up that way within the conditions, I think that is definitely an option.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And then the lighting I could do through bypass.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry, you said the light? Lighting, oh, okay.
Yeah, the lights.
sure.
But, when things are up, I could maybe decide differently. But are these like the type of lights you would approve?
Yes, ma'am, but those are something that we can discuss at a later date. We are here to talk about the siding and if that is approvable or not, and I'd like to
Yeah.
stay on that track,
Okay.
please.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Can I ask a question? What is the thickness of the sheathing you're proposing putting under the siding?
Half inch.
Half inch. So you're basically changing all 4 sides of the house by half an inch.
That is correct.
And you're going to use the same exact dimensions of siding and reveal and all that?
Yes, 100%. We'll have it, I take it to special wood and we pay for the knife setup.
Right.
They match the profile exactly.
Okay, and the windows are basically going to be back to the size that they originally were, once you fix all that mess?
I hope so.
That is correct. Yeah, we're going to try and match the rough opening much closer than minus 6 inches, so, right.
Yeah.
The cedar shakes on the gable end, what is the complaint about that? Because I've looked at them pretty carefully, and they seem to be very well painted, very well put together. I just can't see why you're tearing them off to replace them with more cedar shakes.
Sorry?
Saying that the cedar shakes
To go.
probably need to stay.
Go here.
Because that's not insulating a heated space. And that's,
I mean, so, as you can see, they use caulking absolutely everywhere on this house. And I rewatched their HPC meeting, and they talked about caulking this. So that's all that's up there is caulking. And I just don't feel comfortable. They literally just caulked the holes from the, taking off the vinyl.
I think that's one of the bigger factors is, there are certain builders that, if I follow after, like you're saying, I feel confident that the field is closed and properly maintained. From what I've seen, I would think that there are probably a million different, Easter eggs out there that were not properly fixed. So, like I said, it's our attempt to just to give her some reassurance that she's going to be in a safe home as far as mold and air penetration. I know we have been in houses that that were well maintained and had good siding and probably sing a different song if that were the case. But I think this has been through the ringer. So it would just, I'd imagine there's so many surprises that we just don't know of, and the only way to be 100% sure is to do it this way.
Are there any other questions for applicant? Okay,
Thank you.
We will now open the evidentiary portion to members of the public.
Travis Gilbert from the Historic Wilmington Foundation, 211 Orange Street. I just want to call attention to standard 3.5.1, retain and preserve original and/or historic wood siding, trim, and decorative elements. And then continuing, standard 3.5.3, if all or parts need to be replaced. I'm going to match those in dimension, shape, scale, proportion, detail, texture, and material. Specifically, in between those two standards, you have standard 3.5.2, repair wood features using epoxies, so forth. Repair may also include a limited, let me repeat that, repair may also include a limited amount of repair to in-kind features where some of its parts have been deteriorated. It is the opinion of the Historic Wilmington Foundation we've seen insufficient evidence here this evening and in the other quasi-judicial reviews of this case to warrant the complete removal of this siding, especially the siding in that gable up there, which had been covered with vinyl. And it is our hope that your efforts here this evening and the efforts on part of the homeowner will allow the structure to be contributing to the historic district once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Travis while he's walking away?
So again, having watched the HPC meeting on December 9th, 2022, where the previous owners were speaking, they said this home had so much water intrusion that they nearly condemned the home. So, that's the state it was in. So I'm just, again, putting it out there. I really want a safe home. I love, I appreciate y'all, but I hope I don't have to keep coming back here. All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll close the evidentiary portion and move to commissioner deliberation.
thoughts are that the windows and the windows were replaced improperly, and there was an improper...
Ms. Wilson, will you speak
There was
into the mic?
improper, the windows were replaced at the wrong size, which caused many of the problems, and that the AC is the wrong size, which also causes the problems. And if these two things are fixed, then we can go from there without tearing off the integrity of the house. My opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of overhang on the roof to protect it, but, you know, when you take off vinyl siding, it requires 2 passes at a repaint and repair. Some is obvious when you take the vinyl siding off, you do your scraping and painting and then everything, then you come back about 5 years later and have to do it all again because other things are kind of latent in the wood that were hidden and they come out over time that weren't dealt with in the first go-around after vinyl siding comes off. So this is a prime example of something that needs to be like, replace those windows, do it with a qualified craftsperson, contractor that knows what they're doing and is conscientious and careful. And luckily, the house appears to be going in that direction with a qualified person to be able to do this properly, even with the constraints of not having to remove siding on all sides, including the gable. I think with doing the windows properly, putting that roof over, and that could be done at a bypass level potentially for approval on that. And like you said, getting if it's short cycling right now, the air conditioning system needs to be replaced and new ductwork, and maybe even take out the fiberglass bat insulation that's around the windows currently and blowing in cellulose in those areas, because if that does get wet, it dries out, whereas fiberglass doesn't dry out if it does get wet. So I'm of the mind to approve the window replacement with a better properly sized window and leave the siding alone, except for that which has to be dealt with right around all those windows.
Does that make sense?
I guess my thoughts are like, I know there's some of that siding is rotten too, so I don't know if it's 20% of the siding. I mean, some will need to be replaced. Chris, you're the contractor. Is it possible to remove existing siding and then put a Tyvek without sheathing and then replace the siding and replace the rotten siding with new siding?
Barely. All that siding, that's all going to break.
Break?
It doesn't
Yeah, I figured
come out.
it was split
It doesn't
crack.
come out well. You know, I don't know how many nails are in there, and they're usually cut nails and different kinds, and they don't come off real well.
But it sounds like our motion is going to require removal and repair of siding only sufficient to fix the windows. And,
And the rot.
And the rot.
Yeah, just rotten siding.
And the sides of the house where there are no windows and there's no rotten siding, try to repair that first before just tearing it all off.
And I think with all that work we're talking about, 5 years from now, the house isn't going to have, you look back at this, the house won't be having these issues.
Okay.
I think we should make this an approval with the conditions to limit the removal of siding to that only necessary to fix what's rotten, damaged, and improve the windows.
And these are new windows, not replacement, so they'll be flanged.
This current proposal
Yeah.
that you guys are looking at does not include windows. She first wanted to start with the siding and then do the windows, so staff has not reviewed any window that's been submitted.
This is just the siding?
Yes, ma'am.
So we need to come back and bring the window situation.
Well, if she does the windows by wood, we can do that at staff level without a problem. But in terms of the siding and things like that, she mentioned earlier that she was going to go back with wood siding, so it is something that we would want to note in the conditions as well, if that is the case. But in terms of windows, we're not approving any windows here right now. Those are not part of this project that was provided.
I didn't see it, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to come to the podium, sir.
If we do begin construction, and like I said, I think there's a good chance, we do notice that they have removed the siding in the past and put the furring strips underneath. So that would not be like a historical, would not be a existing siding. Would that be acceptable to remove and replace that siding?
The left and the right of the windows?
Well, right, where you saw where the shims are behind the windows, if those shims continue, then it's obvious that they, at one time, they had removed the siding.
Do you know if those shims are just right on the edge of the siding, where the siding meets it, like they were trying to do something to make the,
Yeah, I
make the
don't
siding
know.
work with the casing?
I'd say 50-50, it's why they did it to begin with. I don't see a bow in the siding, so that kind of makes me lead to believe that for some reason they furred it out. So if they did fur it out, then we're just preserving something that was put on, taken off and put back on a few years ago. So it's not really.
I don't suppose staff has any evidence of this construction process to know that a bunch of siding came off and they shimmed the entire building?
Correct. The project before the current homeowner was done all after the fact. And then HPC required that they replace the vinyl windows that they had installed with the wood windows, which I think led to the improper installment, which has led to where we are today.
Can you put that picture up of the windows that are shimmed and the siding shimmed? I don't have that in the packet.
Chris, if the whole thing is shimmed, what do you think needs to happen?
I'm sorry?
If they go and they continue to explore and they keep
I just don't see how that could,
All right,
like,
thank you.
I don't think I think they just drove wedges in for some reason. I can't conceive why, but surely the whole thing isn't.
You're going to need to come to the podium, ma'am.
Those shims go as far as you can see, which it's dark, so you can't see very far, but at least 8 inches
Right.
or longer. That's.
Like I said, there is some funny business going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and like I said, until we get in there and when we remove, install the new windows and we'll expose the wood studs, create our seal, maybe we'll know more. But like I said, I got a feeling that
Well, I think as you take it apart, based on how we word this, these conditions, I think you do what you have to do to get the job done right for the windows. Pull those shims out. I don't know why those shims can't just be, I don't know if they're nailed. I can't tell from looking at the photographs. You'll be doing the work, but, which leads me to my next question. How soon do you intend to get something started on this? Like, have you ordered windows? Or windows, has an order been placed yet, or you're not even at that level yet?
We needed to get approval for the siding before we can go do the windows. That was our plan.
I think we were looking for, just approval that using a new nail fin window as opposed to replacement, making sure that's clarified, then proceed to the wood window.
No, but we were looking to try and get the siding
Right,
approval.
we would love to
Yeah.
have something to tape to properly, and that was our hope.
The nail fin's, inch and a half or less, so you're gonna be nailing into some framing there no matter what. You tape that properly, under tape it at the bottom at the sill and over tape it on the sides, and then the head casing, obviously, the head tape goes over the sides, and you flash this whole thing right with flashing tape, and should be able to get the whole thing done without.
Right, but like, especially on that front, can you flip to the front? It's like I said, when we get to the front, it looks like there's, what, 18 inches, 20 inches between. So, once we take those shutters off, properly flash it,
You're probably going to be taking some siding off right there on the sides, I would think. And that's kind of one of the conditions we're kind of leaning toward is address that and take off just as much siding as you have to get the windows replaced properly. And I think we're trying to, I don't know how to go about this. I don't know if it's between Melissa and Jessica to help us with wording this to allow you to get something underway without replacing all the siding. That you can sooner rather than later order your windows and plan for this work to begin without removing the houses, and replacing the house's siding.
Rudy, these windows were vinyl before, so that may have been why the shims were put in to match the vinyl windows, perhaps?
I'm sorry, what was the question? What was the question?
we're trying to figure out the reason that they ran the shims in behind the siding boards. You got me on that one. I've never really seen that, just ramming the shims behind the board. And the spacing just doesn't make any sense. But I mean, why would they?
There's a lot of things weird. I think between Historic Preservation Commission and you, we can get this figured out and do it properly in a way that's a win-win. But again, I'm not sure how to cut through this. I'm not sure how to. I think we're denying. I'm in favor of denying, and I can make that motion if I get a little bit of help. But denying the replacement of all of the wood siding on the house and the gable and all of the stuff, but working with bypass perhaps to get a wood window that's closer to the home's original size by looking at the original rough framing around the windows and working with you to do the roof and things like that.
And the HVAC is very important.
Well,
too.
that's not a
Can
commission.
we put a stipulation in, though, if we do notice that there has been, by the previous contractor tampering or reinstallation of the siding, or that if that is visible and apparent, that we can, since it's not original, we can remove and.
I would refer to Melissa, but I think probably the best option is to deny this project, and then they can work with me at a bypass level to get approval for the windows, and then if they're gonna use wood siding, then we can approve wood siding at staff level as well. So it might just be like an easier, cleaner cut to do that, and then we just start at the siding, and I can work with them specifically. If there becomes an issue where I feel there has to be more siding removed than I'm comfortable with, then I can work with you guys to get that sorted out. But I feel comfortable working with them to make sure that we don't take out too much siding, things of that nature. That seems to be the best path forward to me. Melissa may have a different idea, but.
No, I agree with Jessica. I think that would be the cleanest way to do it. That way you all can work directly with her and hopefully not have to come back with the commission if you're going to be using wooden siding and wood windows.
So not necessarily doing anything with conditions on this motion as it is, but.
Correct, because the way things are talking, right, the reason it's here is because it was hardy board siding, and so now the way things are going, this is wood siding, and they're gonna be wood windows, and those are things that we can all do at staff level and don't have to go in front of the commission, which could make their process kind of continue forward, but also we can work to make conditions that would allow us to monitor the building as well as then provide us with consistent information about what's happening around as they do some exploratory work to figure out how much damage is actually there, and if it gets to a point where I'm no longer comfortable, we can have a discussion with the applicant about coming back to commission.
In wood siding, the scope being just left and right of the windows and maybe a course or two above and below the window, but not everywhere you're talking about.
Yes, sir, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Then we can't seal.
Well,
You'll be able to seal. He can seal.
We're gonna take off enough that we can
That you can seal.
provide a seal.
Around the windows.
But that doesn't help with the house, the rest of the house.
Your house and 99% of the other houses in Wilmington are not
That's
any
a
different.
Wilmington, right? But I have a serious mold problem going on.
That's
My
your air
house
conditioning
was
system. That's your
nearly-
leaking horrible windows and your air conditioning system.
Was nearly condemned. It said on video, and you can go back and watch it, that it was almost condemned by the people who bought it before me because of all of the water intrusion. And we're just going to leave that the way it is, knowing that they did a shoddy job.
There's water that gets through every structure. Water comes through every structure. It's how you manage it when it gets through. And one way to do that is with a properly sized air conditioning system. But, you know, maybe in the future, if you want to have hire a building science person to come and do some demo and show like rotted framing and mold behind your drywall, there's a lot you can do from inside. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But I think
Mold behind my drywall.
my opinion, maybe our opinion, is that you don't need to replace all the siding on this house to get the house healthy again. There are other things you'll do to address
I do have
this.
a mold report. I submitted that last year when I was here that talks about how.
Did the reporter note that this is 100% the fault of bad siding all around the house?
The siding is we've got an extreme of taking all the siding off, and the other extreme is just small patch jobs. And we're trying to find somewhere in the middle where you repair what you need on the siding
I
to
understand.
start with.
I
But
understand that there's.
the whole side of the house that has no windows, we need to look at that first before just tearing it all off.
Right, but you can't see that from the street, and I know we have a preservation commission that's opposed to doing these things, that's here and often speaks, and in this particular case, we have a house that was around the corner from me that did the whole entire house and was far more contributing than my house, as well as another one. So last time it was because there was no precedent, and there clearly is a precedent.
You'd have to provide further information about about the precedent projects that you speak of. We don't have any documentation of that.
Are we going to deny?
I actually have some pictures, but I'll send them
And we
to you
talked about
later.
that after one of the last meetings,
we
about
did.
how
We
that
asked about that.
project exceeded its scope.
Stephen Sulky actually, in the last meeting, said, in fact, that 620 Chestnut had all of the siding taken off.
It wasn't all, but
It was.
But
I
this-
live around the corner, and a friend of mine actually took pictures when most of it was off. So,
But for tonight's application, which is to tear off all the siding on the house, it still doesn't make sense to us, and we're still not going to approve that. So
Siding is no different than every other house with wood siding that's this age in the city. You have other problems that need to be dealt with. The siding is not your problem.
Rudy, is the extent of the exploration you've done just around the windows? The pictures you've shown us, is that as far as you've gone?
I'd have to go back. I do think in her, in the mold report, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I do think that they had thermal images of,
yes.
of the walls and just, you know, when I say the field, I mean between, you know, the siding between the windows and full walls, and it was showing hot spots and just completely random places. So like I said, it's, you know, like Christopher was saying, it's when you take that vinyl off, especially, it's just, you know, how careful were they? You know, it's not the same siding that was underneath there, you know, before they put the vinyl. They went in there, they beat it with hammers, you know, they put penetrations through it. Obviously did not take care to refurbish the wood. So I think, like Karina is saying, that the biggest thing is it's like a shotgun blast of, you know, little hot spots everywhere. And this is my only solution I had to, you know, give her 100% guarantee.
I think, again, getting your windows, you're going to hire a good painter to go through there and deal with all the paint issues, probably a sealed crawl space. You don't have any gutters on the house. Like, you need a new air conditioning system. It's going to get done. This this is all going to work out. I'm sorry, I don't want to sound glib, but this, you seal your crawl space, take out those foundation vents, put gutters, manage the water, like you probably have water in the crawl space, like you probably moisture issues in a lot of places you're not even,
Actually, the crawl space is pretty dry.
it appears dry, but if you put a piece of plastic down there, leave it there for about a week and come back and look underneath the plastic, it's going to have a ton of water that's condensed on the bottom of the plastic. Every crawl space looks dry, but they're not.
So at this point, I think the commission on deliberation is not ready to approve tearing off all the siding.
I have a question for Ms. Huffman. If a wall is discovered to be very bad, rotten, whatever, water penetration, how much authority can we give to Ms. Baldwin to allow that wall to be replaced? Can we do that as a condition?
If it's being replaced with wood siding, that could go through bypass, couldn't it, Jessica? Yeah.
Okay.
So if they find something that is obviously needs to be removed and repaired, then that would be through the bypass process as long as it's using the proper materials.
Okay.
Okay,
I think that's going to be a more efficient way of dealing with it.
okay.
I move to deny the exterior alterations, including a change in cladding material.
Thank you.
Details as shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application. Supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. Motion is based on evidence presented before us, application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. The proposed request does not comply with the Wilmington design standards for historic districts and landmarks and is not compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is not congruous with the site, streetscape, historic standards with the historic district, residential as a whole. Applicable design standards 1.6, 3.2, 3.5, 1.6 standards 1 through 6 and 9, 3.2 standards 1 through 4, 6, 9, and 13, 3.5 standards 1 through 6, and 3.8 standards 1 through 4 and 6.
Do you have to state a condition, though, that Jessica's going to review?
You're going to give Jessica authority?
I think that's implied. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this would just be a denial without conditions, and she could go through the regular bypass process outside of this.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, so we have a second.
Second?
Did we get a second? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion passes. And we will move now to new business, which is 128 South Front Street.
Sorry, I did not mean to do that. The subject property is located on the west side of South Front Street between Dock and Orange Streets and is a contributing resource in the Central Business District Historic District overlay. Only that which can be seen from the public right-of-way, excluding alleys, is subject to design review. The front east facade is visible from the South Front and Orange Streets. The north side facade and rear deck and upper elevations of the building are visible from Water and Orange Streets. The Von Kampen building, built circa 1894 and designed by prominent Wilmington architect Henry Bonnets, is a two-story brick commercial building constructed in the folk Victorian style. 7 bays wide, the front facade features 2 recessed entry storefronts with large window openings, cast iron piers and columns, as well as a divided transom light with colored glass details running the width of the entire facade. The storefront is capped with a molded cornice. The upper story windows are 1/1 with foliated spandrel panels above. The roof line is capped with a stone-stepped parapet and a central plaque. The entire facade features rough-faced masonry stringer courses. The building served as a grocery and drug store for many years as well. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing open-air pavilion located on the rear deck and construct a new, larger open-air pavilion in the same location. The deck is not being removed, only the roof structure. The proposed open-air pavilion will have the same size as the existing deck, 37 feet wide by 57 feet long, with the framework and 6x6 posts to be constructed from treated wood. The yellow area on the left shows the current portion of the deck covered by a roof. The highlighted plan on the right shows the larger new roof. The proposed roof will be a JF Timberline HDZ asphalt shingles in Fox Hollow Gray, with a gable end that will be filled with James Hardie shake siding measuring 48 inches long by 15 1/4 wide, with a reveal to be approximately 7 inches. The applicant proposes to modify the existing rear deck as well. The existing benches will be removed from the north side facade, and L-shaped benches and U-shaped high countertops will be constructed in the same area, highlighted here in yellow. The existing planters and railing from the west rear facade will be replaced with L-shaped benches highlighted here in red. The applicant also proposed to construct a storage closet approximately 15 feet, 8.5 inches long by 3 feet wide in the southeast corner of the deck. The closet will be enclosed by the proposed louver screens on the east and south sides, the existing staircase along its north side, and a single door entry facing west. The new door will be 3 feet wide by 6 feet and 8 inches high and is to be constructed on site from treated wood. The proposed door will include louvers designed to match the existing louvered walls. This section is highlighted in green. The existing louver screen wall along the south side facade will be replaced by 93-inch high louver screens installed between the new roof posts. The applicant also proposes to repair and replace the existing deck balustrade as needed, and existing 6x6 posts will be cut for a 42-inch cap rail to be installed on top. The proposed shake siding, framework, post, benches, counters, louvered screens, and balustrade will be painted brown to match existing, and new trim will be painted white to match existing. Currently, the existing south side louvered panels have been infilled to be opaque without a COA. The proposed open-air pavilion would not be attached to the building, only the deck, and staff would like to note that the existing open-air pavilion has a standing seam metal roof. Staff would like to enter this presentation and report in tonight's proceedings at this time.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
What was that last part about the windows being, did you say, what was that last bit about the windows? Were they covered? Or?
Are you talking about about the louver panels being covered?
No, I thought you just said something about windows being covered. Maybe I misheard you.
So I didn't mention anything about windows. They have existing louver panels, as you can see here. When I went to review the property for a site visit, I saw that they had covered the louvers on one side, making them like opaque so you couldn't see through.
Okay, got it. Sorry. Thank you.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will now allow the applicant the opportunity to provide additional evidence or answer any questions. Just state your name and address so we can get it into the minutes.
Hi, Eric Jabley. I'm the architect. My address is 1106 Audubon Boulevard here in Wilmington. One thing I'd like to add to that is right now over the rear deck where the existing roof portion was not, most of the time there's a tent that's there. They use a tent to cover their space for their events. So it's a, white vinyl tent with metal poles, and it's fairly unattractive. And that's there almost all of the time. So their intent is to make something much nicer, where water doesn't pour in between there and the existing roof. When there is rain during events, it looks nicer for the entire community. So that's the goal of what we're going for.
Any questions?
My only question was, it looks like the pitch of the roof is a bit steeper. It was 512 and now it's 612. The proposal is like a 612 and it kind of blocks those windows on the back. Was there a reason for that?
So, yeah, can I control the pictures here?
I think so.
I don't know if it's the other way. It doesn't show it, does it? So yeah, the existing one was 612. We lowered it because it's now wider, and so I didn't want it to go quite as high.
Oh, it looks like in the drawings, it says that the existing one is 512 and the proposal is 612. So maybe I just, it looks like they're kind of blocking those windows a bit more.
They are because it's wider,
Okay.
but the idea was to try to minimize that.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open up evidentiary portion to members of the public. We will close the evidentiary portion and move to commissioner deliberation. Any comments or? Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll do it. I move to approve with conditions the construction of an open-air pavilion. Details are shown in the drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application. Supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. This motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of fact. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report numbers 1 to 4. The proposed request with conditions does comply with the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Landmarks, is compatible with the materials, features, design, context, and character of the housing, historic building, and historic districts in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the Central Business District, historic district overlay as a whole. Applicable design standards: 1.6 Secretary of the Interior standards, standards 1 to 6, 9 and 10, 2.6 decks and swimming pools, standards 1 to 3 and 5, 3.1 roofs, standards 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 11, 3.5 exterior walls and decorative woodwork, standards 1, 3, 4, 7, 3.8 exterior color, standards 1 to 6, 5.1 commercial existing buildings, standards 1 to 4 and 7, 6.2 demolition, standards 1 to 8.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Move on to the last item of new business, and then we'll take a 10-minute break before we review the the draft of the design standards.
The subject property is a contributing resource in the Carolina Heights Winnetka Terrace Historic District overlay and is located on the south side of Chestnut Street between North 19 and North 20th Streets. Only that which can be seen from the public right-of-way, excluding alleys, is subject to design review. The accessory structure is partially visible from Chestnut Street and the intersection of North 20th Street and the rear access alley. The Edgar L. Hinton dwelling, built circa 1923, is a 1.5-story bungalow and is one of several in the district attributed to Edgar L. Hinton, who was the owner-manager of the Seashore Hotel in Wrightsville Beach. The dwelling features painted brick and a side gable roof with exposed brackets and overhanging eaves. A shake shingled clad dormer protrudes from the roof and features 2 6/1 windows as well as rafter tails and overhanging eaves to match the main dwelling. A half-width front porch is supported by a brick pier and has simple picket railing. The front facade features a triple 6/1 window in the west bay and paired 6/1 windows on the east bay. There are partially exposed chimneys on the east and west facades and a low cement boundary wall that extends along the north front of the property. No accessory structures are identified in the National Register report. The applicant proposes to remove the existing wood shingle, 8 feet by 12 feet accessory structure from the southeast corner of the lot, and the 4-foot-tall fence located to the west of the existing accessory structure. The date of construction of the existing shed is unknown. However, the applicant states that it is likely less than 20 years old. In the same location, the applicant proposes to construct a new 2-story detached accessory structure that will be 24 feet long by 18 feet wide, totaling 864 square feet with an overall height of approximately 20 feet and 5 inches. The proposed foundation will be a concrete slab on grade. The proposed setbacks would be 115 feet from the front facade, 5 feet for the side east facade, 20 feet for the side west facade, and 15 feet for the rear facade. The proposed roof will be clad in Timberline HDZ algae-resistant laminated high-definition fiberglass asphalt shingles in the color weatherwood and will be supported by exposed rafters that will be constructed from pine. The proposed first story will be clad in James Hardie primed HC10 fiber cement smooth panel siding measuring 48 inches by 96 inches in the board and batten style, while the second story will be clad in stagger butt cedar shingles measuring approximately 16 inches by 3.5 inches. The proposed shingles will match the size and design of the shingles on the main dwelling. The proposed trim will be James Hardie primed HC10 smooth fiber cement trim measuring 3.5 inches wide. All proposed operable and fixed windows will be Anderson 100 series vinyl windows. All operable windows are to be sliding windows with either 1 or 2 operable panels. The window sizes have been included on the slides before you. All proposed doors, unless otherwise noted, will be Therma-Tru exterior fiberglass entry doors with smooth star full light measuring approximately 37 inches by 81 inches. The proposed south facade, first story, will have a single car garage door and the proposed garage door will be a Coplay classic steel 18.4 R value insulated white garage door with insulated windows measuring 9 feet by 7 feet. An overhanging deck will be constructed on the second story from treated wood and will have simple square balustrade and hand railing. The applicant has not provided dimensions of the deck or the balustrades. Facing the overhanging deck will be 1 door and 1 window with 1 operable panel. The proposed side east first story will have a 1 window with 1 operable panel, and the second story will have 2 windows. The northernmost window will be fixed, and the southernmost window will have 2 operable panels. The proposed side east first story, and the second story, I apologize, I put those notes twice. The proposed front north facade will feature 2 doors and 1 window with 1 operable panel in the first story, while the second story will have 1 window with 2 operable panels. The proposed side west facade features an exterior fiberglass entry door, smooth star 1 panel shaker, approximately 3 feet wide on the first story, and then the second story will have 3 fixed windows. The proposed accessory structure will be partially visible from North 20th and Chestnut Streets. Many of the properties on the block have accessory structures along the alley and are partially visible from North 20th Street, including the neighboring house to the east, which has a 2-story accessory building. The dwelling is a 1.5 stories tall, and the height of the house as measured from grade to the peak of the roof is not provided. The proposed accessory building would be 2 stories and 20 feet and 5 inches tall from the average grade to the peak of the roof. The City of Wilmington Land Development Code prohibits accessory structures from being taller than the principal building on the lot. Under the previous COA, MJW 2228 HPC approved with the condition that the new accessory building shall be no taller than the house as measured from the average grade to the peak of the roof. They also approved that new windows and doors were to be FiberX, which is a composite material blend of 40% wood fiber and 60% thermoplastic polymer, some of which is a reclaimed material. And then staff would like to enter this presentation report in tonight's proceedings at this time.
Are there any questions for staff?
So I remember that we approved demolition of the accessory structure a couple of years ago, right?
Yes.
And wasn't there also a proposal that we reviewed for
Yes,
a new structure?
It went past the deadline to start work.
Okay, and that's
and
the one they were proposing for Fibrex windows?
Yeah, so they did make some changes.
Okay.
And the window material is one of the changes they did make.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We will now give the applicant the opportunity to come forward and answer any questions or provide additional information.
Hey, everyone. Trey Saltman at 1922 Chestnut Street.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Altman?
I do.
Curious as to why the windows changed? Was it a single hung or a double hung a couple years ago?
I don't think they did, actually. I think that Anderson 100 is a mixed composite material.
Okay.
I don't think, it's not a straight vinyl. It's considered a composite.
But they were double hung or single hung before, and now they're sliders?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It's the operability of a couple of those windows changed in the plan. But yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Open the evidentiary portion to members of the public. If no comments, then we will close the evidentiary portion and move to commissioner deliberation.
And just to answer your question, the previous operation approved was casement. Christopher.
Okay.
I have a question. If we're not supposed to go higher on the accessory building?
Right, the condition is it's the accessory building.
The
can't go-
microphone, please. You guys need to talk to us, not
All
each
right,
other.
I was asking about the height of the accessory building, whether it was higher than the house or not.
It can't go higher than
It
the
can't,
house.
but we don't know what the height of the house is.
I can speak to that one. So that's where we came up with that height of 20 foot, 5 inches is based on that height of the house right now. So in working with the architect, that's where we landed on that number. So we adjusted the height of the ceilings downstairs and upstairs to match the height of the house.
Good,
Can-
okay.
I'm curious, while you're there, can you speak to the balustrade, what that would look like design-wise?
On that back balcony, just
like 2 by 4?
basically like the front, on the picture, the front railing on the porch there, just 2 by 2, 2 by 4, standard, pressure-treated balustrade. Yeah, I think, keep it simple. And and it comes out 4 feet. I think that is on the plan, actually. She mentioned that we didn't give that, that distance out, but that little balcony on the south side is a 4 foot extension.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Somebody want to do a motion?
I move to approve the construction of an accessory
I don't think you
structure.
opened the public hearing.
Oh, I thought I did.
We did for a second.
I did for a second, and we got, okay, so I'm now going to close the public part of the commentary. Move to commissioner deliberation and go then to a motion.
I move to approve the construction of an accessory structure. Details as shown on drawings, plans, photographs, submittals, and narrative statement contained in the application and supplemental materials and statements made at this meeting are part of this request unless otherwise noted. The motion is based on the evidence presented before us, the application submittals, testimony, staff report, including the findings of facts. The following conditions shall be applied to ensure compliance with the design standards, those set forth in the staff report 1 through 4. The proposed request does comply with the Wilmington standards for historic and landmark, is compatible with materials, features, designs, context, and character of the historic building and the historic district in which it is located, and is congruous with the site, streetscape, and historic aspects of the Carolina Heights, Winoka Terrace overlay district as a whole. Applicable design standards 1.6, Secretary of the Interior standards 1 through 10, 2.5 garages, carriage houses, accessory structures 2.6 deck and swimming pools, standards 1.7, 2.9 archaeology standards 1.5, 3.1 roof standards 1, 6, 8, 9, 11, windows and doors standards 1.8, 3.5 exterior walls and decorative woodwork, standards 1, 2, 4, 7. 4.2 new construction, standards 1 through 7. 6.1 relocation, standards 1 through 10. 6.2 demolition, standards 1.8.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. We'll take a 10-minute break and then come back and talk about the draft of the revised standards. Okay, we're all back, and so I will give Jessica the floor to talk to us about the revised standards that we live and breathe.
All right, y'all. Tonight, we will review the final draft of the design standards. Staff has been working with consultants to see that the standards update reflect a more user-friendly, objective approach to ensure the history of Wilmington's built environment is protected. You'll notice the current design standards have changed from a visual standpoint, and this is in an effort to modernize the document, to establish an ease and readability, and facilitate the users to locate and find information conveniently. None of the content has changed since you received a final draft, only the visual representation of that content. I will walk you through the standards update as well as the public comment we have received prior to the meeting, and then we'll open the floor for additional public comment. We'll start at the beginning. Style pages have been simplified, and we've removed the antebellum label, replacing it with historically accurate terms that reflect the building history in a more inclusive manner. We have incorporated the folk Victorian style, as it is now recognized by leading architectural historians and represents a large part of the built environment of the historic districts of Wilmington. A dedicated spread to the Historic Wilmington Foundation has been created. This is in an effort to provide clarification to the public about the differences in our organizations, as well as educate the public about HWF's involvement in the preservation of our built environment. The information on this page was provided by Historic Wilmington Foundation. We have added review-level tables to the standards. Removing the previous tables, these new tables are more thorough and will hopefully provide users with a much clearer understanding of what level COA they may need for any particular project. The tables are organized by project type, beginning with roofs, and the projects reflect the most common questions and submitted applications we have received. There are two highlighted requests here that are changes to existing practice. All right. The first notes the staff is requesting to remove paint color from any review. Since 2019, staff has reviewed 254 paint applications. We created a matrix to determine the amount of time spent on review, and it averages to about 40 hours a year. Paint is not a permanent or physical change to a building, and staff believes our time could be saved and focused on community development, surveying and developing strategies to enhance our grow our local historic districts, as well as provide flexibility and time to enforce and monitor larger projects a bit more closely through the current districts. The second change of practice, staff is requesting the removal of a required major work for substitute materials of new construction. Current standards require a major COA for material changes to new construction and additions. We believe allowing staff to approve material changes for new construction would prevent the slowdown of a project and provide a savings cost to citizens. The landscaping standards have been clarified to align with the Land Development Code. It continues to promote maintaining mature trees where possible and continues to note the removal of 5 or more large trees requires HPC review. Section 2.3 fences has been updated to provide a clear definitions of side yards, appropriate locations of fences, as well as material options. Standard 10 informs the user that finished sides of fences should face outward from the property. This is aligned with the Land Development Code as in current practice for staff. Standards have also been updated to include commercial fencing locations, heights, and materials, all of which align with residential fencing standards. Lastly, clearly marked images have been added to further provide clarification on what fence styles are considered appropriate within the historic district. Walkways, driveways, and off-street parking. The standards are updated to align with the engineering department text standards as well as the Land Development Code standards. This includes acknowledging driveways should not be constructed where they are not historically located, as well as existing driveways may be eliminated, and if that elimination is encouraged if properties or driveways were not historically located. That was good. Anyway. Decks and pools. These standards have been updated to allow materials to be used that are able to be more well-maintained, including woods such as cedars and cypress. It also includes a standard that pool construction should avoid negative impacts on historic properties and constructed in a way that could be removed without damaging the structure of the historic property. The roof standards section has been divided into 3 categories: roofs, roof features, and chimneys. New standards specifically to chimneys and materials help to identify the concerns HPC has faced in regard to the removal of original and non-original chimneys and vents. The updates in this section have added standards to acknowledge more current building practices, including the prohibited use of tar or asphalt products in the repair of slate or metal roofs, as well as reflect that if substitute materials are required, the new materials used should be as compatible as possible to the visual characteristics of the historic roof. Door and window standards have been updated to acknowledge materials, glazing, and best practices. Standard 2 indicates that glazing should not be covered or painted. Standard 6 reviews the use of double pane glass and that it can be congruent when installed properly. It is also noted that within this standard that storm windows are preferred over glass replacement. Standard 11 encourages the replacement of non-historic windows and doors to be based more closely on historically documented evidence. Standard 13 acknowledges that shutters should not be added to historic structures if no evidence documents their previous existence. This standard has been followed by staff prior to the update. Standard 14 clarifies the era of construction where louver shutters are considered appropriate. Standard 19 specifically references window air conditioning units. The standard notes that they are not appropriate for front facades and should only be installed in rear windows when not visible from the street. The new section, Foundations, was previously referred to as underpinning. The only update in this section is the title change. Porches and entrances section provides additional information of maintenance options, and the standards continue to place an emphasis on repair over replacement. Section 3.6 combines previous sections, metals, wood, and masonry. The combination into one section, now called materials, will give users an easier access point of finding information on the materials that are allowed for use in the historic district. The section also provides additional information on best practices of repair and maintenance of historic materials, but does not alter the standards. Additionally, a subsection has been added to the materials section that reviews artificial materials. This subsection provides clarity on actions already being followed by the HPC, including cementitious siding should face smooth side out. The building material charts you see have been added to the sections to help users understand what is allowed, what might be allowed, and what is not allowed in the historic districts. The tables are divided into subsections based on location of repairs, such as walls, foundations, roofs, doors, and windows. The addition standards have been updated to allow for clear and objective interpretations. Standards 3 and 7 demonstrate the need for additions to be diminutive and subordinate to the historic structure by locating them at the rear of structures and recessing them inward from historic exterior walls. Standard 8 reflects the standard practice that additions should be recognized as new. It notes that additions, design, and construction should be thoughtful and should use materials, roof lines, and window types that are not the same as historic structures to provide a clear representation that they are newer elements to a historic structure, allowing future generations to understand the history of the structure itself. Standard 9 notes that foundation heights and eave heights should align if possible, and that eave heights could be lower to further demonstrate subordination of additions. Standard 12 again acknowledges the need for a difference in design of additions by stating that simplified details allow for clear acknowledgement and that an addition is new to the historic structure. Standard 13 discusses larger scale additions, acknowledging that they may be appropriate for historic structures, but methods of connecting them to the historic structures should remain smaller, again emphasizing that addition is indeed an addition. Standard 14 reiterates that additions should be products of their own time, without replication or indiscernible connections to historic structures. The new building section has been divided into building siting standards and design standards. Building siting refers to the location of a new structure on a property, including setbacks and the connection to the street wall. New design standards are updated. The new building design standards are updated to include how the amount of glazing, massing proportions, and fenestration patterns are required to create congruent new construction. It also notes that the residential construction should, as with additions, be products of their time. Lastly, Appendix E has been added. Appendix E discusses resiliency and climate change. By adding it as an appendix in lieu of a standard, it allows residents and staff flexibility in what options are available to preserve historic structures as sea levels rise and natural disasters occur more frequently. Standards listed within the appendix are directly from the National Park Service and Secretary of Interior. They are standard practices for subjects within the historic context. Staff notes that at the beginning of the process, we held a community meeting at the MLK Junior Center. We met with Historic Wilmington Foundation's Preservation Action Committee and its Board of Trustees. We've also attended a Residents of Old Wilmington meeting to answer questions and provide a summary of the updates. Staff has also sent postcards to alert the community of the drafts and had different levels of the draft available for review on our website with an area to provide comment. We have received commentary from 4 people since the final draft was posted, with their comments largely referring to grammatical errors, which at this time we have fixed. This includes that in a previous edition of the standards, the term porte cochere was defined incorrectly. This has also been addressed in the recent update. Additional comments have included enforcement and the ability to ensure projects are completed as per their COA issued. While this document does not and is not intended to speak to that issue, staff is working to create operating procedures and internal standards that will hopefully allow for a more accurate monitoring of COA in the historic districts as a whole. That's it.
Very nice. Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Any questions for Jessica? Comments from the commission?
Could you say that again?
I always said it like 8 times today, so.
So I love it, like overall. The whys of historic preservation at the beginning is appropriate. The architectural styles with local examples, the partners with Historic Wilmington Foundation and Legacy was wonderful. I want to suggest that maybe on page 2, there's something about standards for archaeology. I don't know if it would go there or back around where Historic Wilmington Foundation and Legacy Architectural Salvage is, but to include some note of the Public Archaeology Corps and what they do, because the Public Archaeology Corps is called on at times whenever archaeology is requested by staff or the commission. And I mean, their website is publicarchaeologycorps.org. Maybe there's an opportunity for a note to acknowledge them as well.
Yeah, we have a resources page in the back that we'd be happy to add them to. And when projects do begin, I usually provide that information. Since they're a nonprofit, the city feels comfortable handing that information out. So I usually have them call someone from there too. But I can add that to the resources.
Maintenance notes were great. I love seeing that. The one thing I want to note was I went to look at, oh gosh, at the beginning, right at the beginning. Give me a second.
No problem.
In the table of contents, I was curious about what was noted about the Historic Preservation Commission. I went to page 32, but it's actually on page 35, so maybe some of the page numbers aren't lining up.
Okay, I will see that that's prepared. I think that I thought that was my last thing to do, and I thought we had done that, but I will check on those.
And then, so maybe you kind of spoke to this toward the end of your presentation. There's really nothing there about COAs and enforcement and things like that. So maybe that's not the goal of this document, but we're always trying to prevent these after-the-fact applications that come before us. So maybe at the beginning, if there was kind of a summary or an abstract that said, who is this for and how do you use it? And if you're in a historic district, these are things you kind of have to pay attention to. I never saw in this that anything about, that was clearly stating in a summary, and it should probably go at the very, very, very beginning, because it jumps right into the whys of historic preservation. There's something about who this is for. And like if you live in certain historic districts, you must pay attention to this wonderful resource to ensure that, you know, mistakes aren't made going forward as you live and maintain the home and improve the home. And then I was curious about how this is distributed. How is this found? Like, is it easily found? Is it just couched at the on the website for the Historic Preservation Planning Office within the city zoning office, or where does this whole big wonderful document reside?
It lives on the city's website in the historic preservation
Just there,
planning
okay.
section. Mhm.
Okay.
Beautiful job.
Thanks. We worked really hard, so. Any other questions?
Yeah, I like the section with the commercial and residential properties with proportionality and the setback and all that, because I know in the past, not recently, but we've had debates when somebody wants to build like a one-story house on a block and everything is three-story and they want to build it 10 feet back more than the other. I mean, this kind of sets a standard and says, no, it has to fit, you know, into that block.
Yeah, I figured y'all might have picked up that I was pushing that product of the time thing. So yeah, the having those kind of separated and divided out gives clear guidance about how design and approach to design that hopefully can guide architects to be a little more thoughtful and creative when they're building new construction within the district.
Just out of curiosity, could a couple editions of this be bound and put into the library?
That's a great question. I'm trying to figure that out now. I don't know the answer about it going into the library, but I'm trying to get my own copy bound, so I will report back to you.
Because, yeah, some people aren't that savvy with computers and looking at things online.
Sure, yeah.
But the library is about to be demolished.
Well, that too. When
there's a new library, we will can see that those things get put in there.
I love the way it's laid out. It's very much clearer. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Yeah, we were the city's urban designer worked really hard the past couple of weeks to get it as a much more cleaner, easy to use document. And now even on the back end, the actual program that we use to create the document is now much more cleaned up, so that the next preservation planner or the next time we do an update, it'll be much simpler and can be done in a quicker fashion and less cost.
Have there been any efforts to get this out to the realtors or to the real estate association?
I mean, we do the class with HWF already, and so now with the new standards that will be included. Once they're adopted, we will send out new postcards to let everybody know that they're adopted. And then I also have a COA workshop planned with Historic Wilmington Foundation just after this, in this early spring.
Do we now open this to public comment before we do a motion to approve?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I will open this segment up to the public for comment or additional information or evidence. If anyone wants to come forward and contribute to this discussion before we pass a motion.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Michael Smith. I live at 211 South 2nd Street.
Wait, Mike, do you have to be sworn in for this? No? Okay. Never mind, Mike.
I didn't understand
Yeah, this
anything you
part is
said.
not quasi-judicial, so we're okay.
I'll go through my speech, but I would like to just inject one question. With the presentation of the standards to you that were highlighted, you all got a copy of that, I presume. It was not online. I don't think, I have the whole document here, and I continue to wonder
Mr. Smith, you have to speak into the microphone.
how friendly it would be if what was highlighted in the presentation here was online and printed out. Did I escape that? Did I not see it?
No, sir, that was not, it was not there, just the design, the draft itself was online available.
And I, was much, are you Mr. Chambers? I communicated with you many times wanting those updates and consultant things, and the fact that the public, other than the members of the commission, could see all this, and I could not, just to know exactly what the language was going to be. But anyway, I will go ahead and make my presentation. I am honored to be able to speak tonight as you recommend to review the design standards, take a vote on this tonight. I have lived in the HDR for 45 years, love architecture, and I'm a preservationist. Served on the HPC for 4 years and always followed the job description issued by the state of North Carolina for commissioners under State Statute 190. During my time on the commission, I witnessed the holes and weaknesses in the current standards for both the applicants and the commissioners. I attended the original meeting held at the MLK building as this program debuted with the consultant here in town. I offered that night suggestions and have subsequently left comments on the city's official website. I also attended the Historic Wilmington Foundation update on the new standards, which was presented by Ms. Baldwin at a roundtable, and she discussed and presented some of the changes and took questions and comments, which I engaged in. Having left comments online, there is no way to see or judge if they were ever discussed or possibly incorporated reasonably in the recommendation. My first concern, fencing. Under that heading, I would like to share what I see as a weakness and abuse in that system. Fencing let's see, it seems that by the commission to alter guidelines on fencing approval in many cases, it seems as if the HDR is becoming a neighborhood of stockade fencing. Even corner lots, which fall under the review of the HPC, have seen approval of heights beyond the standard and/or location. Neighbors frequently come and speak supporting the applicant's tall fence as a neighbor, but I don't really think that should have much bearing that a neighbor is asking to exceed the standard, and that has been carried forward from neighbors who have made such statements. Fencing, a prime example of this is located at 7th and Dock Street. This fence dominates the house and property and has taken over visually the entire house. Listed in the draft for standards in fences and walls is number 8, which reads as follows: front yard fences must be lower than the maximum allowed for the rear yard fences. New fences and walls should not exceed a height of greater than 4 feet. Supporting posts may project up to 6 inches above the height. Rear yard fences and walls should not exceed 6 feet on corner lots. I inject that fence heights and designs only come before the HPC on corner properties. The standard continues. On corner lots, fences may not exceed 4 feet in the height at the side yard if they are placed at or behind the midpoint of the side of the house. The height of the fence or wall should be constant and follow the contour of the land. Question related to this: in following the contour of the land, the fence may appear wavy, going up and down throughout its run if the terrain is inconsistent. Is that what's supposed to happen? If the terrain is not flat and even, it will wave like that. Question. I've listed in my comments left online and in person with Ms. Baldwin and expressed concern as to how the administrative bypass is handled and followed up on. Let me break this down. If an applicant comes before the commission with a proposal for a feature that has never been presented or requested, it is my wish that such a request be taken before the HPC for discussion and approval, at least the first time. Even given the education and talents of a planner, I'm not sure why this would wish to take this on, why a planner would wish to take this on initially and without previous approval of a request. Such a request occurred during my last year of service on the commission when an applicant proposed to put a fire pit in the front yard. Certainly many fire pits have been approved and located in the rear gardens away from sight from the front of the house. This one was not and was approved in an administrative bypass. Another concern of mine is the lack of follow-up on approvals and ensuring that the work approved by the HPC is correctly carried out and that the commission and the general public who live beside or around the corner from a property deserve to know that the senior planner or staff have followed up to ensure the vote taken was followed. That is not currently done. I can point to many cases, 4 or 5 currently, that have violations that correction was not, the work was carried out inappropriately, and it has, years into its existence, has never been removed or cited for any irregularities. Ignoring the follow-up and ensuring the applicant adheres to the vote is imperative and makes the entire process how it was meant to be carried out. Anything less is disrespectful to you as commissioners and the public. I know that a list of houses and applicants have been approved by administrative bypass is given each month to members of you as a commission. Follow-up to ensure that the work is carried out correctly and properly seems too often not followed up upon. The example I gave earlier in the fire pit has another element to it, as in no follow-up by staff. The fire pit in question is fed by a large white propane tank clearly visible for all to see from the front yard and street. The applicant came in with a brown rose trellis which stands before this large white tank. Not white, which would match the tank, and a year there's still no greenery in front of this white tank and this brown trellis. So again, just a clear example of non-enforcement of a vote either the commission took or the planner took upon herself. I've brought this up to, let's see, the answer I'm given by Ms. Baldwin is that they do not have the time or the staff to enforce this. That was discussed at the Historic Wilmington Foundation, that even making a call to a code enforcement officer will generate little follow-up. One is never given a call back from code enforcement or from the department, the preservation department, as to the consequence of the right answer. Is there a violation? Is there not? You never know. You absolutely never know. Getting near to the end here. Proposal for administrative bypass for all color houses. There was a movement, a recommendation when Christine Hughes was senior planner some 2 or 3 years ago to advance to a bypass judgment by the planner for all color applications. It was voted down unanimously by the then commission. While I do understand that there are many colors that may be acceptable, which could be approved administratively, I do think that all should be taken away from all should not be taken away from the HPC oversight. Even though one might consider house paint colors somewhat temporary, they can and do last a long time, given the desire of the homeowner. It seems an even greater tragedy to witness a bad or inappropriate paint color on a beautiful home. Finally, trees. Located on page 160 or 161 is the list of various tree types and shrubbery under small, medium, large. I do not see any variety of palms listed. Wilmington falls in a Zone 8 location, and palm trees can and do very well here. Even old turn-of-the-century photographs reflect them on streets and around houses. Why have they not been included? I think this should be discussed and added. In closing, I must compliment what is a beautiful document and prepared online and for printing. It is my belief the design changes and new wording added for change should have been highlighted and thus making it a friendlier document to absorb the suggestions for change. I do believe that during all of the changes with Land Development Code, which I was involved in several years ago, those documents did come out with highlighted changes. So it was easy to read it, and you could know what the old language was in the new language. Apparently, some people got it, some people didn't. I didn't. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts and concerns, and we'd very much like to have some discussion from staff and commission on this before you take your vote tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Smith or comments? Okay. Anyone, other members of the public have comments on the draft of the standards?
I would say palm trees aren't included because they aren't native here, correct? Palm
They're
trees
also
are
technically a grass.
Yeah, the Historic Wilmington Foundation would not support palm trees. That is not appropriate. There are some in front of the Dudley Mansion that were planted there in 1895 by James Sprunt. That probably should be some legacy trees if that program would come with some enforcement, which I know that's the Tree Commission is looking at. Thank you all for the opportunity to talk outside the quasi-judicial process. I never get this opportunity with you all. I have to be boring, and it's kind of scary talking about specific standards and whatnot. So it's kind of a pleasure to speak with you all. In case you're wondering, UNCW is only losing by 1 against Drexel, Campbell. So we're all looking to get out of here and I think enjoy that men's basketball game. So I will be brief. On behalf of the Historic Wilmington Foundation and its Preservation Action Committee, thank you for taking the time to discuss the proposed revisions to the Wilmington Design Standards for Historic Districts and Overlays. It's important to note that Ms. Baldwin did present to our Preservation Action Committee these changes on November 7, 2023 during a committee meeting. And my comments here tonight are a reflection of that discussion and consensus that was reached unanimously by the Preservation Action Committee that does report to our Board of Trustees, and they unanimously affirmed those comments during their board retreat this past Saturday. And although these design standards were not discussed during that board retreat, I do want to thank the 3 commissioners that were able to attend and discuss many issues, including enforcement and how we can work collaboratively to ensure that enforcement is improved in the local historic districts and overlays, in addition to how we might collaborate to ensure that more realtors are brought into the fold about these design standards, and how we can ensure that we're getting ahead of the game and welcoming new members of our community into the local historic districts and overlays, making sure that they're aware of these design standards. So thank you. I'm just now realizing, was it convenient, Melissa, that only 3 attended, lack of quorum? Is that?
Coincidence, no, nothing else.
Right, I'm sure. I just have about 5 comments here this evening. First of all, standards 2.3, fences and walls. We did ask that there be a more narrow definition for side yards, in particular to corner lots. We share Mr. Smith's concerns that there are many stockade fences that are appearing rapidly in the local historic districts and overlays, and they are adversely affecting the integrity of the historic district and specific to sight lines. And we are very happy that staff was able to work with legal and come up with a more standard definition of those side yards. It's at or behind the midpoint side of the house. And I think that that will do great justice in ensuring that these stockade fences aren't going right up to the public right away. We're going to be taking a look at that and advocating for that as cases come before you in the future. And I want to couple that comment with my comments recently about fences that are shielding parking areas. That's of great concern to us, the proliferation of off-street parking in the local historic districts and overlays, and then the addition of these fences in order to shield that parking. You know, it's critical that these stockade fences at 6 feet are not going up to the public right away, whether they're shielding cars, trash cans, or whatnot. So thank you for beefing up that standard to ensure that our sightlines are not adversely affected. One comment that unfortunately did not make it into the final document here, and I just keep encouraging this commission and this staff to work harder on incorporating more archaeological components into our design standards and to our enforcement. I greatly appreciated, Commissioner Yermal, your comments tonight about adding the Public Archaeology Corps. That was brilliant, and I appreciate staff's ability to add that to the resources page. They're a wonderful resource here that we're very lucky to have. In specific, our comment was standards 2.9 related to archaeology. We respectfully ask that reference to the total floor area of 3,000 square feet plus be removed. We wanted to see that in any new construction, regardless of the square footage of that site, require an archaeological excavation. The feedback was that that would be somewhat of a burden on small homeowners and smaller businesses, which we understood. So we just want to see and encourage more use of the Public Archaeology Corps, and I think we all reached a wonderful compromise on that matter. Standards 3.6 related to artificial materials. We wanted to ensure that both the commission and staff was aware on a definition of, quote, unavailable. There's much commentary in Standards 3.6, artificial materials, regarding the appropriateness of artificial materials when the appropriate in-kind materials are unavailable. So we're going to keep looking and ensuring and pushing for a higher burden of proof for when those artificial materials are appropriate as opposed to when they are inappropriate. And I feel confident that we all can work together and more narrowly define unavailable. Is that a time manner? Is that the material being unavailable because of certain difficulties in the supply chain? I feel confident we can work together and define that as a precedent moving forward. Lastly, standard 3.7 with the paint color. We had a robust conversation at the committee level about the deregulation of paint colors. So I want to read what our consensus was for the convenience of the commission. The Historic Wilmington Foundation believes that paint colors appropriate to the architectural style and age of historic buildings are important to maintaining the authenticity of historic buildings, our historic districts, and overlays. However, the Historic Wilmington Foundation does support the deregulation of exterior paint colors if it permits city staff more time to pursue stays of demolition and overlays, stays of demolition in our historic districts and overlays. Additionally, our organization believes it is imperative that educational resources be developed to assist property owners in selecting appropriate paint colors, and we offer the foundation's resources in developing said materials. And I think as you've seen the past 2 years with the current city staff, there has been an outpouring of collaboration with the city historic preservation planner and the Historic Wilmington Foundation to offer free workshops, such as the upcoming one on certificates of appropriateness, or appropriately priced resources such as the Realtors course with Commissioner Sulky and Ms. Baldwin that join us. We're hundreds now in of Realtors, and I don't know what their phone lines are like, but our phone lines seem to suggest that it's working. There's more of an awareness about paint colors. So in summary, by deregulating the paint colors, we not only hope that city staff can work more collaboratively with the Historic Wilmington Foundation to pursue stays of demolition in the National Register Historic Districts. This is state enabling legislation that will require the state legislature to act. We've been following this and monitoring it very closely, and we are hoping that by finding periods of time, we've been told tonight is 40 hours a year, little chunks of time build up. And if we build up enough chunks of time, we can take on stays of demolition outside the local historic districts and overlays. Might I remind this commission, the reason that was on the books and never enforced is because there was not enough city staff time to enforce those stays of demolition. And then when the Land Development Code was rewritten, it became very apparent that we did not have the appropriate enabling legislation to make that legal. So this is an effort, again, to return to that standard, but ensure that we don't reach that standard through a lot of hard work at the state legislature and then back here to city council just to have that regulation on the books and it be unenforced. What good is that? Secondly, I believe deregulating the paint colors, it's going to make preservation a larger umbrella. I am sure many of you receive the same joke that I do. I'm the paint police. By deregulating the paint colors, we are hoping that we can shed some of that negativity that is unfairly placed on this commission and unfairly placed on the Historic Wilmington Foundation. And we can focus on preservation matters that are longer lasting and more adversely affecting the integrity of our houses, our contributing structures. There are many cases tonight that showed what happens when we focus less on longer term adverse effects. And we are distracted a little bit by paint colors that are more a temporary measure. And by keeping that label of paint police, how many agents, how many contractors are we turning away from the fold in that old saying, it's better to ask for permission, or it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. It's an effort to avoid some of that going into the future. And this isn't hot air. We're working on that collaboratively with city staff, with the Historic Wilmington Foundation. And we believe that this is an appropriate measure to continue that trend by bringing more people into the fold and shortening, as the trend showed last October when you had your annual report, less and less after the fact presentations here. So lastly, I just want to, on behalf of the Board of Trustees and the staff at the Historic Wilmington Foundation, thank you all for the opportunity to comment on the draft here before you. We also want to extend our heartfelt gratitude for the addition of another page in the design standards to discuss not only legacy architectural salvage, but the Preservation Resources Network. We were able to bring on the 2 new plaque colors and have a little bit of copy that further fleshed out for the public the difference between you all and the difference between the Historic Wilmington Foundation, trying to unravel that mystery and that myth out there. And lastly, we just want to applaud Ms. Baldwin's leadership and her collaboration through this effort. She has been a pleasure to work with during her time here in the city of Wilmington. We have appreciated the collaboration and the outreach that she has brought to the Historic Wilmington Foundation in addressing these design standards. We started way back. I knew it was hot out because remember we were inside and needed the air conditioning. So it's been a long time coming. She came to us early. We did not always agree on everything. There were plenty of disagreements. But it shows the leadership in that staff member that I'm able to stand before you today and say that we have worked through those disagreements, and the Historic Wilmington Foundation wholeheartedly endorses this document before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on the design standards draft? No? Then I will close the public section of the comments and go to commissioner deliberation. Anybody have comments on the draft?
I already sent Jessica a list beginning of the week, so I'm trying to cut down on time here.
Okay. Good. All right, then we don't have a written motion, do we? Okay. All right, then I guess I will make a motion to approve of the draft of design standard revisions presented to us by city staff this evening.
Second.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Woo-hoo! Thanks, y'all.
Hey, Jessica.
Well done.
Job.
Are any other items from the commission members or city staff? All right, then I make a motion to adjourn, and we're out of here. Thank you.